Welcome to Real Beast, your ultimate destination for all things informative videos, Dragon Ball, and entertainment. Dive deep into the world of knowledge with us. Welcome, friend. Before we start the video, please subscribe my channel, click on bell icon for latest updates. Certainly, let's explore World War II in greater depth, examining key events, battles, and their historical significance in a more extended format. 1939, the outbreak of war. September 1, 1939, Germany, led by Adolf Hitler, launches a surprise invasion of Poland using blitzkrieg tactics, rapid and coordinated attacks involving tanks, artillery, and infantry. This invasion is a violation of international agreements and treaties. September 3, 1939. In response to Germany's invasion, the United Kingdom and France issue ultimatums to Germany to withdraw from Poland. When these ultimatums go unheeded, both countries declare war on Germany, officially beginning World War II. 1940, the early years. May 10, 1940, Germany continues its blitzkrieg strategy, invading France, the Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg. German forces quickly advance through these countries. June 14, 1940. German forces enter Paris, and the French government surrenders to Germany. France is divided into occupied and unoccupied zones. Battle of Britain. Germany's Air Force, the Luftwaffe, initiates a sustained campaign to gain air superiority over the United Kingdom with the aim of facilitating a potential invasion. However, the Royal Air Force successfully defends Britain against the Luftwaffe's attacks, marking a significant turning point in the conflict. In the early stages of World War II, Nazi Germany had rapidly conquered much of Europe, including France, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Norway. With Britain now isolated and under threat, Adolf Hitler turned his attention to the island nation. July to October 1940. The Battle of Britain began in July 1940, with the Luftwaffe launching a series of air raids, primarily targeting British coastal defenses, shipping convoys, and radar installations. These initial raids escalated in intensity as the summer progressed. August 13, 1940, the Luftwaffe initiated a major offensive against British airfields and radar stations, aiming to incapacitate the RAF's ability to respond effectively. This phase of the battle, known as the Adlerangriff Eagle attack, was a critical juncture. September 7, 1940, the Blitz, a sustained bombing campaign against British cities, commenced. While the Blitz diverted some of the Luftwaffe's efforts away from RAF airfields, it did not break British morale. September 15, 1940, Battle of Britain Day saw a massive aerial confrontation over London and the southeast of England. The RAF inflicted heavy losses on the Luftwaffe, compelling a shift in German tactics. 1941. Expanding conflict. June 22, 1941. Germany launches Operation Barbarossa. June 22, 1941. Hitler's invasion of the Soviet Union was the largest military operation in history. On June 22, 1941, Nazi Germany launched Operation Barbarossa, which was the code name for the invasion of the Soviet Union. This operation was one of the most significant military campaigns of World War II and had far-reaching consequences for both the war and the world. Adolf Hitler's decision to invade the Soviet Union was rooted in his ideological and strategic goals. He viewed the Soviet Union, under Joseph Stalin, as a major enemy of Nazi Germany and believed in the concept of Lebensraum, or living space, for the German people in the East. In the early morning hours of June 22, 1941, without any formal declaration of war, German forces, along with their Axis allies Finland, Hungary, Romania, and Slovakia, launched a massive surprise attack on the Soviet Union. The attack spanned a front that stretched over 1,800 miles, from the Arctic Ocean to the Black Sea. Three main German army groups were involved in the invasion: Army Group North, Army Group Center, and Army Group South. Each had specific objectives and targets within the Soviet Union. The German blitzkrieg tactics, which combined fast-moving armored units, artillery, and air support, allowed for rapid advances into Soviet territory. This initial phase of the invasion achieved significant territorial gains for the Germans. German forces made substantial advances during the first weeks of the invasion. They captured large numbers of Soviet troops and encircled several Soviet armies, leading to massive casualties and the capture of vast territories. Key cities and regions such as Kyiv, Smolensk, and the Baltic states fell to the Germans during the early months of the invasion. Battle of Kiev, July 7. September 26, 1941, the German victory at Kiev resulted in the encirclement and capture of hundreds of thousands of Soviet soldiers. Siege of Leningrad, September 8, 1941, January 27, 1944. Leningrad, no St. Petersburg, endured a brutal 872-day siege by German and Finnish forces. The city's resilience during the blockade became a symbol of Soviet determination, challenges, and Soviet resistance. Despite initial successes, the German advance faced several challenges. The vastness of Soviet territory, difficult terrain, and harsh weather conditions posed logistical difficulties for the invaders. The Soviet Red Army, initially caught off guard, began to regroup and offer determined resistance. Stalin issued orders for a scorched earth policy, where retreating Soviet forces would destroy anything of value to deny it to the Germans. The Siege of Leningrad, one of the most significant early events of Operation Barbarossa, was the beginning of the Siege of Leningrad-St. Petersburg on September 8, 1941. Leningrad was encircled and cut off from the rest of the Soviet Union. The city's population endured a brutal 872-day siege, marked by severe food shortages, disease, and constant shelling. Impact and turning point. Operation Barbarossa marked a turning point in the war. While the Germans achieved substantial territorial gains and inflicted heavy casualties on the Soviets, they failed to achieve their primary objectives, including the capture of Moscow and the complete destruction of the Red Army. As the harsh winter of 1941-1942 set in, the German advance began to slow, and Soviet forces began mounting a more effective defense. The battle for Stalingrad in 1942-1943 would prove to be a pivotal moment, leading to a turning point in the Eastern Front and the eventual Soviet counteroffensive fleet at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. This attack cripples the fleet and prompts the United States to enter the war. On December 11, 1941, Germany and Italy declared war on the United States in response to the U.S. declaration of war on Japan. This event marked a critical turning point in World War II, as it formally brought the United States into the conflict on the side of the Allies against the Axis powers. December 11, 1941, Germany and Italy declare war on the United States in response to the U.S. declaration of war on Japan. The United States had previously pursued a policy of neutrality in the early years of World War II, providing support to the Allied powers through programs like Lend-Lease, which supplied military aid to countries fighting against the Axis, particularly the United Kingdom and the Soviet Union. Pearl Harbor attack. On December 7, 1941, Japanese forces launched a surprise attack on the U.S. Pacific Fleet stationed at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The attack inflicted significant damage to the U.S. fleet, including the sinking of several battleships and the loss of thousands of lives. The attack on Pearl Harbor shocked the United States and prompted President Franklin D. Roosevelt to address Congress on December 8, 1941, requesting a formal declaration of war against Japan. His speech included the famous line, "Yesterday, December 7, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, U.S. Declaration of War on Japan." On December 8, 1941, the U.S. Congress passed a joint resolution declaring war on Japan, officially bringing the United States into the conflict. German and Italian responses. In response to the U.S. declaration of war on Japan, Adolf Hitler, the leader of Nazi Germany, and Benito Mussolini, the leader of Fascist Italy, chose to declare war on the United States. Their decision was not a formal obligation but was motivated by several factors. Solidarity with Japan. Germany and Italy were part of the Axis powers with Japan. By declaring war on the United States, they sought to demonstrate their support for Japan. Anticipating U.S. involvement. Both Hitler and Mussolini recognized that the United States would likely become fully involved in the war sooner or later. They believed that a preemptive declaration of war might disrupt U.S. war efforts and strengthen their position. Ideological factors. Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy were ideologically aligned against the United States and saw themselves as opponents to democratic and liberal values. Consequences. Germany and Italy's declaration of war on the United States had a profound impact on the course of World War II. It formally expanded the conflict into a global war, as the United States now actively engaged in the fighting on multiple fronts. The United States' entry into the war brought its immense industrial and military capabilities to bear against the Axis powers. It marked a significant boost to the Allied war effort and accelerated the defeat of Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan. The declaration of war also solidified the Grand Alliance between the United States, the United Kingdom, and the Soviet Union, creating a united front against the Axis. December 11, 1941 is a crucial date in World War II history, as it marked the moment when the United States fully committed itself to the fight against the Axis powers, ultimately playing a pivotal role in the Allied victory. Battle of Midway, June 1942. The Battle of Midway, which occurred in June 1942, was a pivotal naval battle in the Pacific theater of World War II. Fought between the United States and Japan, this engagement marked a turning point in the war and dealt a significant blow to the Japanese Imperial Navy. Here's an in-depth look at the Battle of Midway. Background: by mid-1942, Japan had achieved a series of rapid conquests in the Pacific, including the attack on Pearl Harbor December 7, 1941, and the capture of significant territories in Southeast Asia and the Pacific Islands. Japan's goal was to expand its empire and establish a defensive perimeter that would include the capture of Midway Atoll, a strategic U.S. outpost located roughly halfway between Hawaii and Japan. The opposing forces. The United States Pacific Fleet under the command of Admiral Chester W. Nimitz was stationed at Pearl Harbor and had been significantly weakened by the attack in December 1941. However, it still possessed formidable naval assets. Japan's combined fleet, led by Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, was the most powerful naval force in the world at the time, boasting several aircraft carriers, battleships, cruisers, and a highly trained and experienced crew. The battle, June 4, 1942. The battle began when Japanese aircraft carriers launched a series of airstrikes against Midway Atoll, intending to occupy it and lure the U.S. Pacific Fleet into a decisive engagement. The U.S. Navy had broken Japanese naval codes and was aware of the Japanese plan. In a bold and risky move, U.S. carrier-based aircraft attacked the Japanese fleet. June 4-7, 1942, a series of air battles ensued. U.S. carrier aircraft targeted and heavily damaged 3 of the 4 Japanese carriers, including the Akagi, Keiga, and Soryu. In response, the Japanese carrier Hiryu launched a successful strike on the USS Yorktown, severely damaging it. June 7, 1942, in a crucial development, U.S. dive bombers from the USS Enterprise located the Hiryu and scored direct hits, resulting in its eventual sinking. With the loss of all 4 carriers, Japan's naval air power was severely crippled. Significance: the Battle of Midway was a decisive victory for the United States. It halted Japan's expansion in the Pacific and shifted the momentum in favor of the Allies. The loss of 4 carriers and their experienced air crews was a significant blow to the Japanese Imperial Navy. Japan was unable to replace these losses adequately. The battle also demonstrated the importance of code-breaking intelligence in modern warfare, as the U.S. had been able to anticipate and counter Japan's plans. Midway Atoll remained in U.S. hands, serving as a valuable base for launching further offensives in the Pacific. The Battle of Midway boosted American morale and marked the beginning of a successful counteroffensive in the Pacific as the U.S. Navy began to rebuild and expand its forces. The battle was a turning point in the Pacific theater, setting the stage for future Allied offensives, including the island-hopping campaign and the eventual defeat of Japan. The Battle of Midway is remembered as a critical moment in World War II, where the tide of war in the Pacific shifted decisively in favor of the United States and its allies, ultimately leading to the downfall of the Japanese Empire. Battle of Stalingrad, August 1942, February 1943. The Battle of Stalingrad, which raged from August 1942 to February 1943, was one of the most significant and brutal battles of World War II. This epic confrontation between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union in the city of Stalingrad had profound consequences for the course of the war and the ultimate outcome. Here's an in-depth look at this pivotal battle. Stalingrad, a major industrial city on the western bank of the Volga River, held both symbolic and strategic importance. Named after Soviet leader Joseph Stalin, the city was a key transportation hub and a center for arms production. German offensive, August 23, 1942. The German Sixth Army, led by Field Marshal Friedrich Paulus, initiated the attack on Stalingrad. The city was surrounded and subjected to intense bombardment, including artillery and aerial attacks. Initial successes. German forces made significant inroads into the city, capturing key districts and reaching the Volga River. They also encircled Soviet forces within the city. Soviet resistance. The Soviet Red Army, under the command of General Georgy Zhukov and other Soviet commanders, offered determined resistance. Soviet troops engaged in fierce urban combat and fought tenaciously to defend the city. Civilians in Stalingrad, known as Volga Stalingraders, played a crucial role in the defense, often working alongside the military to repel German forces. The encirclement. November 20, 1942, the Soviets launched Operation Uranus, a massive counteroffensive designed to encircle the German 6th Army and parts of the German Army Group B. This operation succeeded in trapping hundreds of thousands of German troops inside the Stalingrad pocket. Life inside the pocket. Conditions for the trapped German forces and their Axis allies were dire. They suffered from food shortages, harsh winter weather, and the constant threat of Soviet attacks. The Soviet Red Army and partisans outside the pocket disrupted German supply lines and prevented reinforcements from reaching the encircled troops. Soviet dances. January 31, 1943. The Soviet Red Army launched Operation Ring, aimed at reducing the Stalingrad pocket. Intense fighting ensued as Soviet forces pushed inward, gradually reducing the pocket's size. February 2, 1943. Field Marshal Paulus surrendered the remnants of the German 6th Army. This event marked a turning point in the battle and the beginning of the Soviet victory. Aftermath. The Battle of Stalingrad resulted in staggering casualties on both sides, with estimates of over 2 million dead, wounded, or captured. Stalingrad's recapture by the Soviet Union was a major morale boost for the Soviet people and the Allies, demonstrating that the seemingly invincible German army could be defeated. The defeat at Stalingrad had a demoralizing effect on Nazi Germany and began a series of Soviet offensives that eventually pushed German forces back toward the west. Stalingrad became a symbol of Soviet resilience and determination in the face of adversity, and it marked a turning point in the Eastern Front of World War II. The Battle of Stalingrad remains one of the most iconic and significant battles in history. It was a brutal and costly struggle that had profound consequences for the outcome of World War II, shifting the momentum in favor of the Allies and heralding the eventual downfall of Nazi Germany. 1943. Allies gain momentum. North African Campaign. Allied forces, led by General Dwight D. Eisenhower, defeat Axis forces in North Africa, securing control of the Mediterranean. Italy Campaign. Allied forces invade Sicily and then mainland Italy, gradually pushing Axis forces out of the Italian peninsula. 1944. D-Day and Liberation. June 6, 1944, a day Allied forces, including American, British, Canadian, and other troops, land in Normandy, France, in the largest amphibious invasion in history. This operation, codenamed Operation Overlord, marks the beginning of the liberation of Western Europe from German occupation. Eastern Front. Soviet forces under Marshal Georgy Zhukov advance westward, liberating Eastern European countries from German control. They reach Berlin by April 1945. 1945. The final push and end of the war. April 30, 1945. As Soviet forces close in on Berlin, Adolf Hitler commits suicide in his underground bunker. May 7, 1945. Germany surrenders unconditionally to the Allies in Reims, France, effectively ending the war in Europe. This date is known as Victory in Europe Day. August 6 and 9, 1945. The United States drops atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan, leading to Japan's surrender. September 2, 1945. Japan formally surrenders on board the USS Missouri, marking the official end of World War II. This date is known as Victory over Japan Jagd Day. Aftermath. The post-war world. Nuremberg trials. Key Nazi leaders are prosecuted for war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide in the Nuremberg trials, setting important precedents for international justice. United Nations. In 1945, the United Nations is founded to promote international cooperation, maintain peace and security, and address global challenges collectively. Occupation and rebuilding. Occupying powers, including the United States, the United Kingdom, the Soviet Union, and France, work to rebuild and stabilize Europe and Japan in the post-war years. This includes the implementation of democratic reforms and demilitarization. Cold War. The end of World War II marks the beginning of the Cold War, as tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union lead to a geopolitical rivalry that lasts for decades. World War II left a profound impact on the world, reshaping the political landscape, leading to the establishment of international organizations like the United Nations and serving as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of global conflict. It remains a crucial chapter in modern history,